The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, talking about comics handling other genres. So we'll read this mail to you. It says, K-pop comics. Dear Perch 4th T. Perchington III Esquire. It's P, not T. It's Perch P. Perchington. You got to keep the P in there. Anyway, how would you feel about a line of comic books based on K-pop? I think I know who wrote this. While I don't have a lot of personal interest, well, maybe I'm wrong. The fact is that I have a daughter who's into both comics and K-pop, and maybe this is a marriage that would work. And just so nobody thinks this is unprecedented, Marvel and Todd McFarlane both had a line of comics based on Kiss. I don't know if you remember, they did the Alice Cooper Welcome to Your Nightmare. Was that the album? Anyway, they had a whole comic book tie-in. I want to say Neil Gaiman was involved in that. I mean, I may be completely wrong about this, but I seem to recall there was some connection there. Anyway, no, there's been music comics before, for sure. If you go back even further, you had like the True Comic Book Stories, and you had, like the Two Live Crew comic book. I swear it's out there. It was not good, but it did exist. So anyway, the mail continues. Also, Twice actually had a Korean graphic novel published. I can't find it in English, but it exists. Who? K-pop Twice, the life story of Twice, a Korean comic book, 176 pages. Jesus, hardcover. That's a lot of comic. Hey, I'm now trying to remember. I'm like, that's not the length of Watchmen, but it's getting close. Like, man, okay, all right. All right, the mail continues. I'm only half asking in jest, and we all know that Mumbles will blow his top at another Twice clip. Okay. But the other half will ask seriously, Twice the comic book. What say you? Well, K-pop and comics. I think that a strict K-pop line. Okay, so I'll put it to you in different ways. In the U.S., probably not a huge seller. Probably not insignificant, but you've got to get the comic book to places where, people who are listening to K-pop would find it. And that, maybe that's something that would probably work better on Webtoon or just I don't know, some kind of digital distribution. I don't know. If you had a graphic novel line that was showing up in like a Spencer's or not Spencer's, Hot Topic and place like that, I don't know. That's not the K-pop crossover audience, but I just know that the direct comic book market probably isn't. And so, and keep in mind, so there's a lot of historical legacy for music-based comics where, they don't sell well, and retailers know it. And so the direct market won't order it, or, they'll order one-offs, or more likely they'll order them on special order only. And K-pop, it isn't seen in the eyes of retailers as something that would move a comic book, meaning if this person likes K-pop, this person will definitely read comics. That connection isn't made. So I think that it's a tough sell, quite frankly, to get it there. I think, but outside the U.S. now, if you're in Korea, if you're places where, K-pop bands are really, really popular, and you have a band that's going to promote the comic book, meaning it's not going to be like this hardcover here, which is a documentary basically, but which people will buy. But I think if you had a band that actually kind of connected themselves in some way to the book, then yeah, it could work. So I think these things can happen. But I think it's a really tough run in the U.S. I think it's got to be sold somewhere other than the direct market, and it depends on kind of what it is. If it's just, K-pop, how these bands became bands in art form. That would be cool to fans of Twice or some of these bands, but it's not going to be picked up by the mainstream because for a lot of people it's like reading a comic book will appear retrospective. It won't feel like the band. It won't feel new. So not impossible, just maybe tough. Tough to put over. In general, though, I think the idea you're saying here, and that comics do need to branch into another area, that all that's true. They desperately do. I think that you do have a problem where comic books just they need to get into other genres where they can draw in more audiences. But I'm very convinced that the comic shop, the direct market itself, is a genre. The other way to look at this, if I haven't lost everybody by now, this is not going to be a highly viewed video, which is fine. Um, but we talk about what you want to talk about. It's fine. The part that I draw out from what you wrote here that I think is powerful is comic books need to think like they want to be a commercial success. So what's it going to take for this comic book, this property, to be commercially powerful? Is what's the hook? The hook in this this idea is, hey, K-pop bands are popular. K-pop audiences buy things. We know that they buy merch and they buy a lot of stuff to support the bands they like. Therefore, this, if positioned as essential merch for the band, could do quite well. Combine it with a art style that's more modern. I mean, the other thing is, and keep in mind, I'm the guy who really, really wants to see a lot of classic artists show up on things. I want to see, Walt Simonson doing work. I want to see John Byrne doing work. I want to see a lot of these creators still getting jobs because they still are great talent. But if you're going to do something that is a comic book connected to a modern current, artist, then you're going to need to, you have an art style that is like manhwa, or, it's got to be really sharp looking art that's got to fit the property. So modern. And so but a lot of these documentary books or these other things, it's like, hey, we got the legendary, I don't know. I don't want to pull a name out of the hat, but I like Ron Lim as an example. So people say, we got the legendary Ron Lim to do this book. It's like, that's a bad pairing. Lim wouldn't be terrible for a K-pop book, come to think about it. But anyway, you catch my meaning. You've got to have an artist that feels, like they're part of this thing that you're trying to create, part of this genre. I don't know. As I said, I think you've got to me, the genre and the place it's sold in are, impossibly linked, or just intrinsically linked. You can't have one without the other. And if you're going to jump into some new areas, and you should, because I think there's a lot there, I still think the horror genre probably is very untapped. The challenge is, again, the comic publishers, particularly the big two, treated a lot of these genres and these ideas as as gimmicks, and they didn't take it seriously. And the comic book shops know that, and the retailers know it. So if you come around, I mean, the Hill House horror books, or the Hill House books, they they were not bad. There was some good stuff in there, but they were seen as secondary by the comic shop, and they were seen as secondary because the publishers have trained them to think that way. So if you're going to come with K-pop, or you're going to come with any new genre, you're going to have to go somewhere else and kind of rebuild the interest there, and almost prove back to the retailers that it could be sold. That's just, I think, something that's going to happen if you want that stuff to go over. That's why a lot of genres do well outside of comic shops. It's just the comic shop has an audience, and it is a genre unto itself, and so it's hard to break free of that. And so I would try. Anyway, and there's different regions, different places. Good old Buddy Yule, I think, has done a good job of diversifying his lineup over there, and his clientele is going to naturally kind of look for other things. But by and large, people walking into a comic shop have a preconceived idea of what they're going to get, and K-pop would be it. Anyway, there you go. And I definitely shouldn't end this video without some kind of K-pop loop, right? Yeah, makes sense. Thanks for listening.